We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's February 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Xin, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Chiji.
Good morning.
Good morning, and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. South Korea's national team soccer player Lee Gang-in on Wednesday reportedly apologized to his senior and captain Son Heung-min in person. The two had a scuffle a few weeks back, right before Team Korea's semifinal match against Jordan at the Asian Cup. Korea eventually lost to Jordan by 2-0. And the KFA fired head coach Jurgen Klinsmann 10 days later for failing to manage his team well. Lee Gang-in acknowledged he had disappointed Son, his teammates, and football fans with his, quote, careless action. And the founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, is planning to visit Korea at the end of this month. While details of his itinerary are yet unknown, if he does pay a visit, it will be the first time he has done so in more than 10 years. Officials on Wednesday said Zuckerberg could probably meet up with Samsung Electronics chairman Lee Jae-yong, as he did during his previous visit to Korea in June of 2013. And more than 8,000 doctors in Korea handed in their resignations as of Tuesday. Among them, 63% walked out without their documents even being processed. This comes as the government aims to train an extra 2,000 doctors per year to brace for a super-aged society. Seoul needs 15,000 more doctors by the year 2035. Now, many foreign outlets and viewers have raised questions as to why thousands of doctors are seemingly going against a measure agreed by 9 out of 10 South Koreans. Not to mention, they seem to be breaking the Hippocratic Oath. This oath, attributed to ancient Greek practitioner Hippocrates, has worked as a centuries-long ethical code of conduct for doctors. It obligates them to put their patients' safety at first. Now, nonetheless, a majority of doctors have put their foot down, and I asked a pediatric why. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I'm 59 years old. The government's decision to raise the med school admission cap doesn't affect me in any way. I'm against their decision because it will crash South Korea's medical care system. I am aware that the public is against our collective actions. But doctors are fighting against this measure to better protect our patients in the long run. Latently expanding the number of eligible med school students to 2,000 will just harm the high-quality medical services in Korea. 10, 15 years down the road, would we have enough infrastructure or medical professors to teach and train med students? Another critical problem is that we don't have enough pediatrics or surgeons in rural areas. How is expanding the quota going to solve that?
We are still seeing a strong standoff between doctors and the government. Not all doctors, though, and we would like to stress that we are open to hearing from those that are in support of the government's decisions. But currently, officials believe that a majority of doctors, particularly those who've resigned from their post, are using the lives of their patients as leverage, trying to maintain their high salaries. And apart from respective arguments, a big problem both parties could agree upon is the drainage of medical personnel and specific practitioners at rural areas. Now, I'd like to use that to expand our discussion here to the studio. What do you guys think about the medical personnel shortage problem specifically at rural areas? And this is a problem that both doctors and the government are aware of.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a very big problem because it's making global news. I read an article yesterday on the New York Post about this, and obviously the domestic news as well. And I certainly agree that it's a massive, massive problem. But if you take a look at the working conditions that doctors, nurses, interns, etc. are dealing with, you really can't blame them in some way. They have one of the most stressful jobs in all the world, and yet we treat them like not dirt exactly, but very close to. Does money fix their problem? Obviously not. It doesn't seem that way. And according to some surveys, some doctors in training are actually working up to 24-hour shifts. So that's incredible. And up to 80 hours a week, double the amount of what a normal full-time worker would be working. But it really is a double-edged sword. Is it right to protest and leaving so many patients left wondering if they will get the medical help that they need right now? Or is it the only way for doctors to get the treatment they deserve?
Exactly. I think that is a valid point because even though doctors are responsible to take care of their patients, at the end of the day, they are human beings too. They go through years of training. But at the same time, another point is that we're seeing patients' lives at risk. And this is for sure. We're already seeing a medical shortage problem here in the capital as well. Now, addressing this issue, what would you like to say?
Well, regional inequality has always been an issue in the country, and it's not just in terms of healthcare, but also in other key areas such as real estate and educational opportunities. And in fact, reports indicate that about 80% of the people who move from rural areas want to move to the Seoul area. And we have over half the population living in Seoul and the metropolitan area, in fact. And because of this lopsided distribution, it's also being reflected amongst doctors because many doctors, they're choosing not to be in rural clinics or the healthcare facilities there. And it's a big issue, the regional inequality in terms of healthcare. And also this recent survey, it was conducted last year, in fact. If you take a look at the number of doctors available in Seoul compared to other regions in the rural areas, where it was 1.59 per 1,000 in Seoul. This number was 3 times those in other areas, such as the Chungcheong area, where it was only 0.49, and also the Jeolla area, which was 0.47.
Right.
So we could see that there is a lopsided distribution of doctors between the capital and the rural areas as well. So, I mean, in order to resolve this issue, I think a more nuanced political intervention is needed. For example, providing more compensation for doctors in the rural areas, not just expanding the number of or the quota of medical schools.
Exactly. And if I expound upon what you just said, I think it all comes down to communication. There should have been much more effective communication between not only the Doctors Association and the officials, but also trainee doctors who are at the field and practicing all these types of medical practices in the field. But hopefully we'll see some breakthrough soon. In the meantime, let's switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day now. We're soon heading into March, which is one of the most bustling times of the year for Korea's job market. Companies have been holding rounds and rounds of interviews to choose the most appropriate candidates. Fresh graduates are shopping for their first work clothes, and it's definitely an exciting time of the year for those who are soon to jump into the job market. But recently, Statistics Korea released a survey that showed despite the arduous job searching and interview process, 1 out of 3 millennial and Gen Z employees are quitting. Their average amount of time in a job stood at 1 year and 7 months. So Chi, why don't you walk us through some of these figures?
Sure. So early and frequent exits as well as turnovers are often witnessed among millennials and Gen Z. And nowadays, the traditional concept of lifelong employment has really disappeared. Now, if we look at the screen, according to Statistics Korea, the average length of stay for Gen Z employees as well as millennials is 1 year and 7 months, with 3 out of 10 leaving within a year. And even if they work hard to get into a company, they quit without hesitation if they feel that it's not the best place for them. And this trend is also seen in the public service sector, where salaries tend to be lower, but retirement is guaranteed. And also, the younger generation is more interested in finding jobs that offer a healthy balance between work and personal life, fair compensation, and good benefits. And they really have to enjoy the work as well, as you see on the screen. And traditional factors like retirement age, job growth opportunities, and company reputation or the name value are not considered as important as they used to be. Instead, millennials and Gen Z prefer to work for companies that are transparent, fair, and committed to sustainable practices.
Exactly. We are seeing a new job trend among our generation. And Walter, would you like to add on?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that many people are going to social media to talk about them quitting their job. So a trend on social media is like retirement vlogs or quitting vlogs, usually under the titles, why I quit so-and-so company, the reasons why I quit so-and-so company. This could be seen as sort of, I guess, educational as well of what to expect with the company. But we've also seen it with YouTubers as well, saying that they'll quit YouTube. So it's not just at big companies, it's also within the social media atmosphere itself. I think that these vlogs are somewhat supposed to be inspirational in some way, and the viewer can be sort of envious that they're maybe following their dream. And quitting the 9-to-5 job just really isn't what our MZers are wanting these days.
Exactly. And companies are really trying to keep their workers by their side. I mean, it's economical if you think about the whole interview process they have to go through. So it seems like they're rolling out many welfare policies that we've mentioned throughout our previous episodes. Didn't really seem to work given that they're only staying for an average a year and 7 months. That's why some companies have gotten more creative. And we're now going to walk you through some of the innovative policies companies are launching for newbies to stop fleeing, right?
Right. So companies are taking various measures to reduce the high turnover among the younger generation. Now, one such measure is to provide meals from popular restaurants that are frequented by these age groups and are willing to even stand in line for. So we call them 맛집, right? The really good, popular,
Right.
delicious restaurants. And companies are also introducing unique benefits, especially for these millennials and Gen Z, such as an employee library stocked with about 100,000 books, and also allowing pets to accompany their owner to the workplace, and also providing financial support for unmarried employees, giving a day off for pet funerals even, and also offering protein-rich food. I really like this one, such as chicken breasts to cater to the health-conscious preferences of these generations.
I mean, a few days back we had you on our show, and then you said you were subscribed to
Exactly.
a chicken breast delivery service. So I can say that protein is a main source of nutrition for you. But I completely agree. I think companies are well aware about the demands and needs of our generation, especially food-wise. Walter, would you like to tell us more innovative policies?
Yeah, so this has really forced companies to, up the stakes when it comes to trying to keep their employees. Example, various programs and welfare systems, programs such as team dinners, which in some cases not many people want to go to, but they are still supplying them in anyway. Going out for movies, drinking, all these other fun activities that you can do, bowling, etc. Increasing holidays is a big one that is keeping a lot of people, I think, and actually listening to the employees' wants and needs rather than assuming what they want. Also changing commute times as well, which is a great thing. Some people don't want to go through the rush of the 7 to 9 o'clock rush and at the end of the day as well. So some people are getting in a little bit later, but that means they have to leave a little bit later. But yes, tailoring to the employees.
And I think the biggest customized tailored strategy is making sure that all the employees there have work-life balance. But instead of separating work with life, they're allowing people to live their life at the company, at the office. Now, we asked our viewers if they ever thought of leaving their job, or if they had, what made them want to. Take a look at the screen to find out what 3 of our viewers had to share with us. Let's start with Ramsey. He said, the reason why I decided to move to a new company is my well-being. Being exposed to work stress took a toll on my mental health. Good working environment, manageable workload, and flexibility are my top considerations. User said, even if the task or job is difficult, I can endure and work if my coworkers are good people, but especially if the immediate supervisor is not a good person or the politics in the organization is rampant, I decide to quit. Benny said, I left a job for 4 years now, and in my reason, I guess I can't handle what the schedule wants me to handle with my sleep or perhaps my work-life balance too. So this is a prevalent problem, not only here in Korea, but around the world. We're seeing a lot of millennial and Gen Z workers quit their posts for many different reasons. And there's a fellow millennial that we have waiting on the line. He used to be a copy editor for years, but decided to quit his job to pursue another dream. Let's hear more from him, so stay tuned for a live interview. We're now going to turn to Richard Larkin, who used to be a copy editor, but is now the CEO of his own videography company called Red Yong Media. Welcome, Richard.
Hello, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, Richard, could you tell us a little bit more about your decision to quit your job as a copy editor, and then now that you're running your own business, the Red Yong Company, why did you decide to do that?
Well, there were a few factors. The first one was, it was mainly about timing. So I had enjoyed working at my previous job because I was able to work in the media field in Korea and also meet people in the same field as I'm interested in. But my dream for over a decade had been to own my own business, videography business. So for a couple of years, I decided to save up money while learning more about media in Korea and gaining more experience. And as I'm in my early 30s, I thought this would be the best time to take a risk like this because I don't have children yet. So I thought that would be this would be the main time to try. And also, like, the last factor would be having more control. So taking on projects I'm more interested in, trying to find clients myself, and try to negotiate pay and hours myself as well.
I see. Well, apart from the decision that you made, why do you think many millennials and Gen Z today are quitting their jobs a little less than 2 years into the post, as we talked about earlier? And what do you think is the tipping point for most?
I think it's about incentives, really. So I think compared to the past, younger generations are now trying to find like the perfect work-life balance. So work to live rather than live to work. And I think it's becoming more commonly known that yearly pay rises do not always get you as much money as negotiating a new salary at a new company, for example. So it could be a better move to a new company and try to negotiate that higher pay and then receive a lot more money annually. Then, of course, everything's on the internet these days. So want to learn how to change careers, learn online, want to learn how to create your own business, the internet is there. So it's giving everyone a chance with internet access to do what they want and try to get the best deal for themselves.
Then how should companies try to keep their employees by their side then?
Well, like I mentioned before, companies should try to offer more incentives that would keep employees happy and wanting to work for them. For example, maybe working from home 1 or 2 days a week. I was actually having a discussion with an acquaintance about this before. And I was curious about the 5-day work week when it started and everything. It was actually created nearly 100 years ago in 1926. So much has changed since then. A lot of the jobs are now technology-based, not labor-based. So that work can be done from home. It's been tested abroad, and it seemed to have positive results as far as I can see. So I think this whole system kind of needs to change in a way. And one particular time that showed that this is possible is the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
Many people worked from home during this time. And it was working. A lot of companies saw that it was working. People didn't have to commute. They didn't have to spend over an hour traveling. So they felt more refreshed. They had more time to themselves, but at the same time, were working for the companies. And then suddenly, when things got better, then they suddenly had to go back to the office, and it just kind of proved that that doesn't always have to be the case.
Exactly. And Richard, I would like to ask you one last question before we let you go. I think for you, you made a very courageous decision. I mean, you changed, though it's still in the media business, you changed from a copy editor to a CEO of your own business. I mean, that's an amazing step. But are you happy with your decision, and would you recommend it to other people? Like, when would you think is the right timing for other people who are working at a company to actually decide to quit? I think there's a lot of things to put into mind.
Well, the reason I felt comfortable for making the change now is because I had prepared so much for many years. This wasn't just, okay, after 3 months, I'm going to quit and start this business. I had been doing it as a hobby for a while, gaining experience, like I said before, and also making sure I had enough prepared that when I make the change, it's not like it's not starting fresh. I have everything prepared and I could go on. So I think that's the main thing is if you feel you're prepared and you do have some savings to help you go by for at least a year or at least 6 months, then I think that would be a good time to try it.
Because it's not all roses and rainbows. I think it is still an arduous process. As much as it's hard to get a new job, you need to really consider what you're losing out there once you decide to change. Thank you so much, Richard. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Rich.
And for a while now on News Generation, we've been talking about the evolving job market and the trends here. We've constantly mentioned that our generation seems to be prioritizing work-life balance over everything. But nonetheless, from this year, what would you guys like to see in terms of changes in the work environment? So it's no doubt, I think we can say with confidence, it is a fact that our generation is prioritizing self-development and career bumps on the way, which is making them change different workplaces very frequently. But what should be based as a foundation for this to be going in the right direction?
Well, it's first of all very welcoming. We've talked about different measures, creative measures that companies are rolling out to really keep those young employees in their company. But I feel like both companies and employees should really engage in open communication and actively listen to each other's needs as well as expectations that they match, And employees, particularly those from the millennial generation, have worked hard to secure a job.
Right.
So it's important for them to think carefully as well about quitting before making any hasty decisions. While it may be courageous to leave a job you don't like, it's equally important to take the time to really consider your options and communicate your concerns with your employer before making any decision, and be open and honest about what you want from the company. And this can go a long way in resolving issues and creating a better working environment as well.
Those are some great tips. What about you?
Yeah, I have to completely agree with you there, because I would like to see companies stop taking advantage of their employees, to be honest with you. They're using the excuse of, you're such a good worker that we want to give you these projects and therefore you have to, do this and this. Let's say you take on another job, though you're only getting paid the same, or just like a couple of thousand, one extra, for example. But they need to respect the employees at the end of the day. As long as the employees are working, doing their job and doing well, I think companies really need to respect their employees and just not make them think that they're just a conch in the big machine, rather than an individual and a person who has to have a life.
Exactly, I agree. I don't think it's a single person job. I think both parties need to be on board. Companies should be well aware that millennials and Gen Z, now that we're taking a dominant portion of the workforce, we are seeing a lot of frequent changes. A lot of people are not staying too long into the post, so they need to be thinking of better infrastructure or incentives and better catching on to this trend. Whereas for employees as well, don't try to exploit this trend. Make sure you give it all to your company and think back to your initial motivation of going through that really vigorous process of interviews. And hopefully we'll see some positive change soon. In the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hee, thank you, and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.